Hello and welcome to In Conversation with the history holders of the American Dance Therapy Association, a project made possible by the Marian Chace Foundation. My name is Dr. Jacelyn Biondo. When I first conceived of making these videos, I hoped to capture the words of the women who studied with the firsts in our field: Marian Chace, Trudy Shoup, Mary Whitehouse, Alma Hawkins, Blanche Evan, and Lillian Espinac. What culminated in the process was an opportunity to have these women share their stories and their memories in their own words, and to capture these parts of history for future generations. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy our conversations. I am delighted to have with me Dr. Eleanor DiPalma today for our conversation. Dr. DiPalma, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be doing this.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. So I'm just going to jump right into our questions. And the first question that I'm asking is, with whom and where did you first study dance therapy?
Well, I first started back in the mid-70s. And I started with actually at Hunter College, City University of New York, with Claire Schmaze, Dr. Schmaze, and Alyssa White. So that was way back when the profession was really, still growing, and it still continues until this day, growing. But yeah, I started at Hunter, and it was wonderful. It's really a life-changing experience. Education has always been life-changing, but that program was, just superb.
And I understand that you studied also with Lillian Espinac?
Yes, I did. Lillian was my mentor. Actually, after I earned my master's degree at Hunter College, I was working in the field, and then I decided to go back and pursue my doctorate at New York University. And I studied there with Dr. Marshall Leventhal and Dr. Rowe, Patricia Rowe. And that was also amazing. Before I started NYU, because I started NYU in '81, I met Lillian in 1977 at an American Dance Therapy conference. And she put out an invitation to anyone who wanted to work with her on a project at the Lincoln Center Library. She was putting together a dance therapy collection of materials. And so I said, yes, I'm interested. And it was then that we started a relationship, a mentor-mentee relationship that really was great. It just added to my education between Hunter College and NYU, and then mentoring with Lillian. I couldn't have had it any better. Learning dance therapy at that time. It was great.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Can you speak a little bit about what drew you into the field of dance therapy in the first place?
I was drawn to the dance from a very, very young age. From the time I started talking, my mother used to tell me that I would look at things and say that these things are dancing. So I was looking through the lens of a dancer, and I just loved it. I was into sports and dance, and I found it to be very releasing, very enjoyable. At a young age, it was really a big part of my life. So I could not keep dancing. I had to keep dancing. And when I was in college, I realized that I wanted to really make this a career. I was at the crossroads of thinking, maybe I would study psychology and be a psychologist. And I said, I thought to myself, well, no, I can't, I don't want to do that, because I won't be dancing. I won't be dancing with people. And I thought dancing is not only good for yourself, but it's good, if you're a therapist, what better way to help people than to use dance therapy as a way to reach people. So my professor at Hofstra told me actually about the Hunter program. And from then on, it was just, upward bound. Yeah.
What styles of dance were you most drawn to in your earlier years?
Oh, I loved modern. I studied jazz. My mother used to take me to the local dance school,
Mm.
so I started with jazz, and then I moved on to modern, and I studied African dance and ballet, of course. I wanted to study all different styles. I studied Haitian, Brazilian, a little bit of Brazilian. So I had a good, a good mix of
Mhm.
a dance background, and then just, of course, social dancing.
Mhm.
That's what I did before I started professional, right? I just used to dance. We used to go to the hall in Jamaica, Queens. That's where I grew up. And every Sunday there would be live music, and it was fantastic. It was just a way to socialize, to get, be among my peers in a very relaxed, fun way,
Mhm.
of being around people and getting to know who my friends are, what they are, what they like. And it was just great. It's just a great
Mm.
experience.
I love that acknowledgement of getting to know who your friends are through dance.
Yes.
Mm. It's such an intimate way of knowing someone.
Yes,
Mhm. Mm.
definitely. I just, as I said, all those experiences led me to believe and to know that this was going to be a career,
Mhm.
dance and dance therapy. It
Mhm.
was just that it was almost like a calling. When
Mhm.
my teacher told me at Hofstra, she said, "Oh, there's a new program. You might be interested." And
Mm.
so I checked out the Hunter program. It was great for me because the tuition was just perfect, very affordable.
Mhm.
And then actually at that time I knew Lillian. Lillian had her postgraduate program. So, but I decided, my option was to pursue the degree. So
Mhm.
I went for the degree.
So thinking about specifically the work that you did with Lillian Espinac and studying with her and having that mentor relationship with her, can you share a little bit of that, what that experience was like for you?
Oh yes, I never knew what the value of being mentored was all about until I had that experience with Lillian. She was to me, she was just a heavyweight in terms of, her knowledge and her experience and what she brought to the profession. And so I was really honored to have that experience with her, and I got to know her on a personal level.
Mhm.
And she lived in Queens, not far from where I live in Queens. And so I used to go to her house. I was in her space, I got
Mm.
to know, how she lived and, her life. It was just amazing because she did so many things. She was really a true leader, a true innovator. I got to know how a person of that stature, of, of such breadth of knowledge, how they function. She was very firm, but she was also very flexible,
Mm.
and she was fun, very, very almost like eccentric, and I loved it. And she had a great command of what she was doing, and she said, but at the same time, she was looking, she knew that I was studying for my PhD in dance therapy, and she was looking toward me, almost like reaching out to me, sending her hand and asking for information that I was learning at NYU. And I just thought that I just felt so good because she was so passionate about the profession and making sure that it was growing and that materials were current materials. And I'd be buried in books from pursuing my doctorate in dance therapy at NYU, and she knew it. She knew that I was busy, deep in the books and writing papers and all. So she would say, okay, give me the list. I would, make sure I was giving her the current bibliographies and so forth. And then she would tell me about how she's going to travel. She's going to, this country. She came back from that country, presenting dance therapy. I was amazed at her energy. She had like an endless energy. devotion and commitment to the work. And I was just so impressed. And I thought, wow, this is somebody I can really, follow in her footsteps with that much energy and that passion and leadership. She was very much a leader in so many ways.
Yeah, you've mentioned the word leader and innovator, and those things I'm really interested in with regards to what about her teaching specifically around dance therapy stands out the most to you? Like, what are the things that you recall from her mentorship that makes you think of those words when you think of her name?
She was very open. She was very open as far as, learning. That I know. And I know this because not only from my experience with, being her mentee, but also when I was at NYU, right after she passed, that was 1988, her relatives, Donald Weissmuller and Barbara Weissmuller. Well, actually they were friends. But they were like her blood relatives. And they knew that I was at NYU and that I had been mentoring with Lillian. So after she passed, they gave me a huge collection of her materials. Not only did I know from her, just by speaking with her about, going to conferences and, not only to present, but to go to conferences to learn from the materials. There were cases, letters, and she was very good at documenting just about everything and anything that she did. So I have materials that show that she was, working. She worked with Blanche Evan at the Alfred Adler Institute. She reached out to the folks at NYU and people in the Dance Guild, would do workshops on the aging. She would, attend workshops with Susan Sandel. She would go and make it be present and as I say, fully committed to the work by learning herself. Well, although she knew a lot, she was still progressing in her own way to go deeper into the work. And she wrote a book, that was monumental, her Dance Therapy Theory and Applications. When I think of her as a leader, I think of her as a person who not only was the authority, but also was taking in and learning herself to go deeper into the work because she had such a passion and spirit for dance therapy. Yes.
The simultaneity of being student and teacher.
Yes.
Both. Yeah.
Yes, most definitely.
Do you have a fondest memory of Lillian that you could share with us?
Actually, yes. She was honored. She was honored at the American Dance Therapy Association. And that was a wonderful, I had never seen her so elated. She had a very positive, as I say, fun, but serious spirit because she was so, intense and passionate about the work. But at that time, I remember she was so elated and it made me feel great because, it was a lifetime achievement. And it was the American Dance Therapy Association who really honored her, it was so celebratory. And I just remember that experience. I forget what year it was, but so way back, but it was great. And all of the people, her students, were there. And I think Lillian felt maybe a little bit separate, even though she was present, she was with everyone, with her colleagues. She felt a little separate from, and so it's always a beautiful thing to feel, to be acknowledged. And, I just thought that was a great thing for her and for everyone.
Yeah. Thinking about the way Lillian practiced and taught and having been mentored by her, if you were to put into your words what you think the essence of dance therapy is as you understand it from Lillian Espenak, could you maybe put into words a little bit about what that essence would have been, what the kind of root of the practice is?
Yes, she was very much into the physicality of dance. And, she had the diagnostic scale. It started with movement. And of course, she worked with her population, was varied. I mean, many people think that she only worked with people who have developmental disabilities, but that's not the case. She worked with a variety of patient groups. She was very much into the physicality of the dance and the improvisation, the expressiveness of dance, the cultural aspect of dance, and of relating, across cultures through the dance. And, her approach was Adlerian. She studied at the Adlerian Institute. While she approached the work differently, there was a lot of similarities between Lillian's work and, say, Chace. I studied, as I mentioned, with Claire Schmays and Alyssa White. And we've always learned, in the essence of dance therapy, is that, there's yourself, and then there's the other, and in therapy, there's the interaction. So there's that relationship in the treatment, in the dance therapy, is very, very key. She was about that. That was the Adlerian approach, social interest. I think she expressed the concept differently, but I think it's the same, that in dance therapy, we are discovering ourselves, but always in relation to the therapist, relationship to others. And it's that interaction that is the key component and the essence of dance therapy, communicating through the dance in relationship, one to the other, one to the group. She emphasized individual therapy, one-on-one, but I think she also worked in groups. The emphasis was on individual because that's really how it is when you're working with patients who have developmental disabilities, which I have done. I worked with children who were on the spectrum, children who had physical disabilities. So did she. And in that kind of work, it's very important to be very focused, one-on-one. But we also worked with groups, and so did she. So I think the essence, going back to the essence, is self-discovery, self-exploration, awareness, perception of oneself, sensing and growing as an individual, but also in relationship to others. And that's what happens in the dance therapy, right?
When you spoke earlier about similarities and differences between Lillian Espenak's work and Marian Chace's work, can you just kind of maybe give us a little synopsis of what you think to be those similarities and differences?
Well, and I remember my training with Claire and Alyssa. We were always, it was wonderful because we had a lot of practical work, dance therapy practicum. And then we had the internship. So it was a lot about empathizing and mirroring, in some way, either visually moving actually with the client or just being aware of your own movement. You could be sitting, but still empathizing through your movement in stillness. Lillian, as I say, I was not trained by Lillian, but I know she had a tremendous repertoire of expressive movement. And that actually stands out because Hunter, Claire and Alyssa, we learned that our goal, in therapy, in dance therapy, is to help clients develop a repertoire of movement and of expression so that we can cope. We can use those ways of relating when we need to, depending on what's happening in our lives, right? Lillian had a tremendous repertoire of movement, and she would encourage all aspects in the improvisational aspect of her dance therapy concept. Improvisation is to explore various ways of expressing. And so that is a definite similarity. While she didn't use the word mirroring, she didn't use that word. I don't think in her writings that really was a Chacean concept. I think that Lillian still was empathizing because she herself, she had a tremendous repertoire of her dance movement was just tremendous. They were the same concepts, empathy, expressiveness, and developing a repertoire of ways of moving and dancing. Language might have been different between Chace and Espenak. I think it's the same.
Yeah, similar concepts, just languaging them slightly differently at the time. That makes sense. So,
and then also, I have to say, I was also trained, as I mentioned, at NYU, and that's Marcia, Dr. Leventhal. She also had a different approach. Her way of looking at the group, she had a structure for the group that's different, a little different than say the way I learned, from Claire and Alyssa, more developed, from her work with Valerie Hunt, Alma Hawkins, and the folks from the West Coast dance therapy. But again, it's the same essence, like I like your word, the essence of dance therapy. Personal growth, development, transformation, healing through the dance therapy. These are the things that we do that are so powerful for anyone who, and dance therapy works with all patients from all backgrounds, all cultures. So it's a very, very powerful profession. And I think it takes a lot, when you're doing work that's so powerful, you have to really work hard at it yourself, to in teaching it and also in living the way you feel is the healthy way of living, right? You have to work on yourself, and that affects how you work. For Lillian, it was her life. Yes, dance therapy was her life. Dance and dance therapy was her life.
Can you say just a little bit more about how it was her life?
She came from a background, and this I learned just from going through the materials that I was so privileged to receive from Donald Weissmuller. She came from a very industrious family in Norway. They were very, as I say, very ambitious. So I think that she had that, and she inherited it in the genes, the ambition, the passion. She was an innovator, a true innovator. She didn't follow the way her family wanted her to, they didn't expect that she would do what she did, which was leave Norway. She left Norway. She went to Germany to study dance. She danced with Mary Vigman, and she was like second in command when Mary went on tour. That Lillian was there, holding the company together. And she also taught dance. She taught individual work outdoors, out in nature in Europe. She had private clients. And then she had to leave Europe during the war. She came here on a U-boat. She just happened to come to New York. How she did it, we don't know. All from, her connections of knowing these people and her family and this and that. She just was she had all of these different ways of getting here to New York, and she came by herself. I mean, imagine that, leaving Europe because of the war and having to come here and start and settle down. And then she was so industrious. She had she would contact all these people, the YMCA, actually where Valerie Hunt was teaching at the YMCA, the 92nd Street Y, back in the day, back in like the 40s, 50s. She went to public schools and taught dance with the children. She contacted all these people. She managed to find the New York Medical College, who, she started the program there, the postgraduate dance therapy program at New York Medical College, and was very assertive. This was not her background to be to be almost like a woman by herself, a leader, a true leader, finding her way and creating this wonderful program at the New York Medical College. They gave her entree to go travel around the world to all these different countries and to present on dance therapy in India, in Spain, Germany, in South America, Peru. I mean, Australia. She went to Australia, so she had that, and that's how she went. She traveled all around. That was back in the 70s, because she started the program in the mid 60s. So she did that for a good almost 20 years. She was traveling all around presenting on dance therapy. Yeah. So that's, as I say, she really embraced a leadership role, and leaders are committed to making sure that the next generations coming up are guided. That was the effect she had on me. Someone who can, have her hands in so many different places, and orchestrating and leading, but at the same time following and taking in and learning herself. That stands out for me.
So I'm going to jump around a little bit, because what you just said really makes me want to move to a different question, and talking about how she really wanted to pass things along to you and inspired you. Thinking about your work and your learning and knowledge and education and wisdom, what would you like to see carried on to the future generations of dance therapy? What are the important parts that you don't want to be forgotten or overlooked?
First of all, the dance. I think it's very important. The dance is so all encompassing. It has every aspect of, when we dance, it's every aspect of our being is engaged. And so, if you think about it, Dr. Leventhal, she would say it's mind, body, emotion, spirit, and soul. And so all of those elements, I think, as we study and we continue to study and pass along the tradition of, from where we came, that it's important to keep those elements in mind when we do research. We don't want to take out the dance. We don't want to take out the spirit and the soul that comes with our research, with our practice. We can be maybe too analytical. I don't know if that's possible. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being analytical. I spend hours, but we want to keep the spirit of actual dance, and keep our tentacles open, like Lillian, and Marsha too. Marsha is very collaborative. That's another good word. We want to be collaborative in our approach of learning and of discussing and developing the work, our concepts about dance therapy. For instance, now that we're still in this pandemic that has changed the world, how we function, how we communicate. Even though we dance, in a shared space physically, shared space, and we feel the connection and the touch, which is so much part of the dance. Now we're isolated, right? We've been isolated for all this time, and we have the computer. And it's very frustrating to connect through the computer. But just like we're doing now, we wouldn't be able to do this if we didn't have Zoom. Mm-hmm. So being open, being creative and adaptive to how the world is changing, mm-hmm. and still keep our eyes on the prize, which is connection through the dance. Mm-hmm. So the dance can be, maybe I'm in New York, I think you're in Pennsylvania, yeah. So, but we're still connecting. Mm-hmm. And that's the important thing, that future dance therapists, aspiring dance therapists, we connect through the dance, mm-hmm. keeping the dance alive. Mm-hmm. And in dance therapy, we want to keep the dance alive. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what I would say. Keep the dance alive in dance therapy. I love it. Mm-hmm. Even though we're bound by this flat screen, mm-hmm. we can still do it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the notion of kind of sticking to the roots of dance, but also having the adaptability and flexibility to adjust that as needed when we continue.
Yes.
So thinking back to your own work now, and your work as a dance therapist, in your practice, do you have a particular patient experience that was meaningful for you that you can recall and share?
Well, let's see. I have numerous mm-hmm. Memories of precious moments, mm-hmm. that I've had with my clients. It's about connecting through the dance. And of course, I've used music. I've used musical instruments with the children, props, for children who have physical limitations. The music and the dance really have helped. And being supervised, I think it's very important to be supervised, when you're doing dance therapy, to have a peer supervision. And this is a way to see things from a different perspective, because sometimes we're in the therapy and we're working with a client, and we may not see something that we've that say someone else can see. So mm-hmm. I think supervision is very good. And I've had just because I was supervised, I had great aha moments with clients where mm-hmm. they just opened up and became more socially aware, mm-hmm. And were able to, as I said before, expand their movement repertoire, mm-hmm. to include more healthy relating. Mm-hmm. I used to work with children who were abusive, children who were very hyperactive, children who were they showed behaviors that were perseverative behaviors. These are children who had developmental disabilities, mm-hmm. and that got in the way from them learning in school. They couldn't keep their attention on what was going on in the classroom. So I saw breakthrough moments for these children, quite a few. In fact, that was the time, I'm thinking back to when Lillian had her program, and the children who were not getting the education they needed, special children, were able to get free education like any other child. So that was a law. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I was working in Queens at a New York State facility for children. And it was a school program. The city Department of Education came in and wanted to know how I was reaching these children. I said, yes, I have these hyperactive children, and they are calm. They can like sit, they can, how did you do that? And they wanted my lesson plans, not lesson plans, but my treatment goals, my objectives. They wanted all that material, the videotapes, and I gave it to them. And I knew, hey, this is powerful work. And the children, they could stay in school, they can show attending skills. They're not going to be engaged in that self-abusive behavior, so that it was great. It was really, really fantastic. And as I said, Lillian was involved in doing the same kind of work at that time. As I say, I didn't know Lillian as a professor, as a teacher. She was my mentor, and my relationship with her was more from administrative, managerial leadership role, rather than say like the clinical work. For dance therapists who are coming up, who are, being trained or interested in dance therapy, I think it's very important that they're aware of leadership skills and they know how to operate and how to be successful as leaders in this field. I think that's one thing that I think was very beneficial for me, learning from Lillian. But as I say, my skills in therapy, really, I have to acknowledge my teachers, Claire Schmays, Alyssa White, and all of the people who in that program. They had top-notch professors, and Marsha Leventhal and Dr. Patricia Rowe. I mean, I have to give them a lot of credit. Also, a key component of learning dance therapy is actually doing it. You can't learn dance therapy without the practice and without supervised practice. You cannot. It's just impossible. And that's what was great about the Hunter program. I had fantastic supervisors, and Martha Davis came in. Martha Davis was there. Joan Sherman, Joan Berkowitz. These are folks who were guiding me, and great experiences working with patients. Breakthrough, changing of behavior through the dance. It was great. I don't have just one or two patients. I have just many.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, many. It was wonderful. We worked with Joan Berkowitz. We worked in at Kingsborough Psychiatric, locked wards. The patients had schizophrenia, psychiatric patients, chronic psychiatric patients, and it was just, you can't forget good moments when you reach people through the dance. The dance was just amazing. They all came. Everyone moves, and everyone expresses in their movement. So we just went with that.
Yeah. So we've covered a lot of ground. Is there anything that I missed, or is there anything that you would like to share that I've not asked about at this point?
Well, I think, for anyone interested in the field, for dance therapists who are, continuing to work, I think it's very important to stay connected with colleagues and to write. Before I started my doctoral program, I never thought I'd be writing as much as I did, but, writing is very important, sharing ideas through the written word. And even like what you're doing now with this, these videos, I think it's wonderful. Documenting what we do is so important. How we can, like Lillian did, and of course Marsha and Alyssa, how we pass along what we have gained, what we see to be true, and of good health, to keep us healthy in mind, body, spirit, soul. How we can pass that along to others, we must do it through writing, through what you're doing, recording, documenting, and research. When we write, we actually are researching. We're increasing, expanding the body of knowledge. So that's what I would just add that.
I love that. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think we need to have various forms of written, verbal, oral, video documentation of everything that we've done so that we can continue to hold true to where this started and where it's transitioned to and where it's going to. And without that written and archival piece, again, whether it's written, verbal, whatever, I think it's really important that we continue this practice as well as sharing knowledge.
Yes, most definitely. And I have to acknowledge the Marian Chace Foundation. I mean, if it wasn't for the Marian Chace Foundation, we wouldn't be doing that. We probably wouldn't be here, right?
Right. So, you and I would not be here.
Yes, we have to acknowledge the Marian Chace Foundation and Sharon Shakelin and you know, Jane Cathcart Downs and all the people. You know, we're a special group where we get together. You know, as I say, I'm really thank you for inviting me to speak. It's my pleasure.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for joining.
Yes.
So before we wrap up, I have a request that is an optional request, of course, but I've been inviting everybody that I've been speaking with to just do a little movement to kind of close us out.
Oh, that's great.
So I would love to invite you to do some movement.
Okay, so let's let me just start with my hands. I thought we could, yeah. Mm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jacelyn.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. I've been delighted to talk with you and have this conversation with you. I appreciate it so much. And I hope that this is the beginning of many conversations that we all can continue to have together throughout the field of dance therapy and beyond.
Yes. Thank you again.